All right, guys, we're going on to a hell of a story. So make sure you get some popcorn, tea, get comfortable, whatever you need to do, because it's about to get crazy. Even if you want to take some notes, because this is one of those cases of what not to do. I don't know, but it's wild. Smash that like button. Thank you. And we're moving on. Oh my God. I've been waiting to cover this. So, there is a very, very, very high profile trial happening right now here in my home state of Massachusetts. You may have heard about it via the news or particular law and crime podcasts. And it involves this woman right here. This woman's name is Karen Reed. You may have seen her face. If it's your first time seeing her face, you're probably not going to forget her face after this segment. What happened to Karen? Karen Reed is a defendant that is on trial for murder. She is accused of killing her now former boyfriend, who was also a police officer. Now, this is the second trial. This is the retrial. The first trial happened April 29th of 2024, last year. It ended in a mistrial July 1st of 2024 because there was a hung jury. Now we are having the new trial, the retrial. And opening statements for this trial began April 22nd this year. Here's the interesting thing. Karen Reed says that not only did she not kill her former police officer boyfriend, Karen Reed says that she is being framed by the police department. Oh, yes, honey, get comfortable. It is getting very, 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 very interesting up in here. We are going to start with what happened that fateful night. We're going to get into the background of how this relationship blossomed and what happened to her former boyfriend, John, the police officer. Let's go ahead and get started with this clip here. You're going to hear directly from Karen herself.
Didn't care for John.
The couple first dated in their 20s and reconnected more than a decade later in the middle of the pandemic.
So how did you meet up again?
He had reached out to me on Facebook and he said, "Hey, blast from the past, how's things?" And when I saw his picture, his profile picture was with several young children. And then it triggered my memory that his sister and his sister's husband had passed away. And he told me, "Yeah, I have the kids now." I admired that. I thought that was amazing.
Soon, Reed says she became part of the family, often sleeping over at O'Keefe's house and helping take care of the kids.
He would go to work and I would stay with his niece and nephew. All of the breaks that the kids had, we did something.
But their relationship also had its struggles. Reeve says O'Keefe had been relying more on her to take care of the kids and that he criticized some of the decisions she made with them.
We had an argument on New Year's Eve. We were away on vacation and he became incoherently drunk. And I ended up ringing in the new year with his niece and nephew. John didn't come back to our room till after 3 a.m. So that was rough. I felt very much taken advantage of. He apologized profusely for what happened on New Year's Eve. And he said, "If you can't get over it, then you need to spend some time at yours. I can't keep apologizing. I don't want to keep rehashing this."
A few weeks later, they were invited to meet up with some friends at the Waterfall Bar in Canton.
So let's pause here for just a second. So that is her giving a little bit of background. So they're making it very clear that obviously they did not have a perfect relationship. Nobody does. There were, I guess, disagreements with how she was handling the kids. So which weren't his biological children. They were the children of a family member, which he adopted. I believe they had passed away.
And there they ran into Brian Albert, a fellow Boston police officer who Reed says O'Keefe looked up to. Albert had led the city's gang unit before commanding the fugitive apprehension team. It was the elite squad responsible for taking down some of the city's most dangerous criminals and featured in the 2013 TNT show, Boston's Finest.
I saw that show. It was a crock of bullshit. Let's continue on. I'm sorry. That show was so exaggerated. Here we go.
1 minute we're walking around, everything's fine, and then 1 minute it's not fine.
Both times I met Brian Albert, he seemed like the type of person that you'd be surprised he's out socially because he doesn't seem like he ever wants to be there.
But at the bar, Reed says there was an invitation to continue hanging out at Albert's home.
I said, can we make sure we're welcome here? Nobody extended the invite to me. I didn't hear the invite extended to you.
They drive to the Alberts' house. What happens next is disputed.
So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone.
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her. And she drove back to his home where she continued calling him before, she says, she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning. She then says she woke up before 5 a.m. He still wasn't home.
Pause. So, one thing to keep in mind when there is alcohol involved, and from what I understand from this story is that both of them had been drinking. I would even say maybe the time could have been a little bit fuzzy too. You know what I mean? Like it sounded like, and it also sounded like to me, neither one of them should have been driving from what I read from this story, but it is what it is. The problem I think that Karen Reed has developed is her persona. I think that when people listen to her, they feel as though she doesn't come across as softer, a little bit more endearing. She comes off kind of sharp, right? Like kind of cutthroat, right? And sometimes that matters when you are the defendant. But based on what I've seen from this trial so far, I don't really understand how they are going to be able to convict her. I think it's going to be very tough. But something I wanted to mention, keep that in mind that both of them had been drinking. So I always say to myself, the time could be a little bit fuzzy. Let's continue.
She then started canvassing the neighborhood.
Just going to drive around in the 2 square miles that we spent the preceding night.
After 20 minutes of unsuccessful searching, she called John's friend, Carrie Roberts, and Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, who was also at his house the night before. The 3 women together now headed to Albert's home.
How soon was it when you pulled in there that you saw John's body?
Immediately. And what struck me when I saw him was his mouth was open a little bit and his eyes were shut and he had spots of blood in different areas on his face.
O'Keefe was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. He died from blunt force trauma and hypothermia.
During that night, there was a blizzard. And I don't know. There are different versions of the events that happened that night. Like she says one thing, and then you're going to hear from the key witness who is saying a different story. Now, many people are asking, why did she go home without him? Apparently there was a disagreement. Apparently they argued about something, and I think she was just ready to go. That's from what I understood from the story. What we do know is that somebody killed John O'Keefe. Okay, so it's not like he just slipped and fell, because they said he had blunt force trauma and he also died from hypothermia, which means he was stuck out there in the blizzard. It was very cold. So if he was unconscious, I mean, what is he going to do? So according to Karen Reed, that is the event that happened that night. She went looking for him. She finally found him. And at that point, he was not alive.
And it wasn't long before Reed became the #1 suspect. Authorities say they had noticed a cracked taillight after they seized her car.
I had told both Jen and Carrie that I cracked my taillight. I said, I just hit my car on top of everything, but I didn't look at the damage. And both women said, it's cracked. It's cracked. Calm down. You cracked your taillight. You're okay. Let's go look for John.
But according to police statements, Jennifer McCabe told authorities that while they were looking for O'Keefe, Reed stated, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" And when O'Keefe's body was discovered, first responders who arrived on the scene say they overheard Reed make other statements.
Firefighter said that you said, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him."
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark.
What do you guys think about that? See that part right there. This is the thing. Some of the paramedics said that when they arrived to the scene, she said that she hit him, but she's saying that she said, "Did I hit him?" Right? That part right there doesn't look good. It just really doesn't. Let's go back just a little bit more here. But like I said, again, remember, they were intoxicated. She said she fell asleep at about 1:30 and then woke up at 5. So that's not even 4 hours of sleep. So she probably was still drunk, woke up and then went to go look for him.
I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark. What I thought could have happened was that, did I incapacitate him unwittingly somehow, and then in his drunkenness passed out?
When you walked out of the bar, how many drinks had you had?
I had probably about 4.
The Commonwealth says that you had 9 drinks that night. That's what the prosecution says.
I don't believe they're saying I wasn't in my right mind.
Well, they were saying you were intoxicated. Is it possible that you might have hit him unwittingly in your admittedly very large SUV?
No, not possible.
Okay, so this is what I was saying about the alcohol. She said she had 4. They're saying that she had 9 drinks. I mean, there is a big difference between 4 drinks and 9 drinks. First Amendment said 9. Damn. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's a lot. And what type of drinks? Was it beer? Was it hard liquor? I don't know. We don't really know. But in this particular interview, it doesn't make her look good, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. We're going a little bit more here, and then we're going to get to the witness.
Possible.
3 days after O'Keefe was found dead, investigators arrested Reed for manslaughter. She was eventually indicted on second-degree murder. Investigators reported they found fragments of broken glass on the rear bumper on Reed's vehicle, and that a broken cocktail glass was found by what appeared to be patches of blood near O'Keefe's body.
The victim, Mr. O'Keefe, is last observed on surveillance video with a cocktail glass in his right hand. Same arm that's injured, the same type of glass that is then recovered from the bumper of the defendant's car.
In court documents, the prosecution also claims that Reed's blood alcohol level could have been between 0.13 and 0.29%, above the legal limit.
Like I said, should not have been driving.
Of 0.08. In addition, they say pieces of Reed's taillight were found on the scene the day O'Keefe's body was discovered. More fragments of that taillight were found the following week, according to Canton police reports, after the snow melted, which revealed more at the scene. But Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, has a different theory about how those fragments of taillight got there.
Those pieces of taillight were placed there after the fact.
You're saying evidence was planted.
The pieces of taillight were planted after the fact.
And this brings up what I told you that Karen Reed has been saying. Karen Reed says that she is being framed by the police department. She still holds that statement that she did not kill John O'Keefe and that the police department is out to get her. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that, because it wouldn't be the first time. It would not be the first time that I've heard something like that. Now, we have to go to the witness, because this is the part I think that has people up in arms. Again, we'll get to this part first. She did another interview, and I don't even know if this is the best thing, but her lawyer is sitting right next to her. Karen Reed did another interview where she talked a little bit more. I want you to hear this as well.
It's the same question. If you're framed, someone's got to run that, direct that.
Who is that person?
I think you know who that person is. I think there's people who are enabling, and there's people who are actually moving pieces.
But is your theory that it's people inside that house, 34 Fairview, who sort of called the shots from the beginning, or someone high up in law enforcement?
I don't know the interconnections, the interpersonal relationships among these people. I have a strong personal opinion that what has motivated this persecution of me is power. There were familiarities among players that never should have happened. There's a sleeve of homicide in the Norfolk DA's office, as there is in the other counties of Massachusetts. And yet the person assigned to investigate this case, ostensibly investigate this case, lives a mile down the street from the crime scene.
That part right there is very interesting. Notice what she said. She goes, I think you know who I think did it. And the location there seems to be pretty interesting. They live a mile down the street from the crime scene. The person who's investigating the case could be a coincidence, but very, very strange. But right now, a lot of people are waging their bets on this key witness, the key witness in this trial, who was just recently on Good Morning America. I want to show you what she said on Good Morning America, and then we're going to show you how she was called out on the stand for not telling the truth. Check this out.
She said what Karen told Carrie that morning when she called.
I believe she said, was that the first time she called John's dead?
Yes.
Carrie relayed to Brendan Kane, a longtime friend of John's, the contents of her call that morning with Karen Reed.
When Karen called Carrie, she was histrionic, screaming, John's dead, John's dead. I think you get hit by a plow. Carrie, John's dead.
So this woman over here, her name is Carrie. She is the one that received the phone call from Karen, I believe either before or after she found John's body. So she is saying that Karen called her saying, John's dead, John's dead. Hold on to that statement.
Is that right?
The first phone call was John's dead, then she hung up.
So that early morning, Carrie picked up Karen and another O'Keefe friend, Jennifer McCabe.
I knew of her. I had met her once, and that was it.
They drive to the house where Karen dropped John off. It's dark in a blinding blizzard.
It was so snowy, you couldn't see. And as we were driving, Karen would lean in between us, and she was frantic. I mean, she knew John was missing, so she was frantic about it, as I would be. And then we turned to pull down Fairview, and she saw him on the lawn, and I didn't.
Carrie quickly joins Karen on the lawn, and the two women perform CPR on John until police arrive.
We went to go find him and make sure he got home okay. And when you find him and he's not okay, it was pretty hard.
Carrie and John.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that correction, Kay. That's right. That part's important. Karen called before the body was found. So Carrie, who was friends with John, she said she received that phone call from Karen before the body was found that John was dead. So the question then becomes, if she is telling the truth, how could Karen have known that her boyfriend was dead if she hadn't even seen the body yet? If that is true, is it true? We're going a little bit more here.
Were friends since childhood. So was Brendan Kane.
He was a diehard South Sox, Bruins, Pats fan. Name it, Boston sports. He was obsessed.
O'Keefe became a cop like his grandfather, staying close to his family, including his sister Kristen. When she and her husband died within months of each other, John took his niece and nephew in as his own. Carrie was his right hand.
It was like all hands on deck when they would go to dance recitals and stuff, father-daughter dances. I would do their hair and get the boutonniere and get the corsage, and he did a great job. This was one of my best friends.
In the 3 years since Reed was arrested, the town of Canton has been transformed. Neighbors have taken sides. Witnesses have been harassed. For the crime of?
Telling the truth.
Answering the phone.
It's my friend. I'm not going to not help. It's all about which side are you on? We're John's closest friends and family, and we're still haven't been able to grieve because of all of this. It's all.
Okay. So you need to know that she is friends with John, or she was friends with John. They were very close, apparently. Now, however, just the other day on the stand during the retrial, Karen Reed's attorney was able to call out Carrie for a previous statement that she made that apparently she admits on the stand was false. Let's get into that. I told you this is an interesting case.
And the witness in question today is this woman, Carrie Roberts. She is a friend of that police officer victim. And she testified at Reed's first trial as well, and also testified for the prosecution. Here's her story. She says that Karen Reed called her at 5 o'clock in the morning screaming, "John's dead." And then followed that with like, he might have been hit by a snowplow. This is bombshell testimony, people, because that call, she says, came in way before John's body was ever found lying in the snow. How could she have known John's dead? How could she have known about a snowplow? How could she have known about snow? Really hard to like get over this, right? Except if you're that guy. If you are Alan Jackson. On cross-examination, Karen's hotshot defense attorney, Alan Jackson, took this witness down a notch. He pointed out inconsistencies between her grand jury testimony and what she said in court.
Here we go.
And it all had to do with what this witness claims Karen Reed was saying out loud that terrible morning in the snow. This witness originally told the grand jury that she'd overheard Karen instructing their other friend, Jen McCabe, to Google hypothermia. But as it turns out, on cross, that actually may not have happened.
Everybody hold on to this. So Carrie said that morning when they discovered the body, that she heard Karen Reed say, "Google hypothermia," right? Okay. Let's hear what they say on the stand. This is the interesting part.
You painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that.
The answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and I'm not a trick question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her, my client, ask anyone to Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement was because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that, I'm going to let her answer.
Nobody told me to say it.
This woman has been caught lying to a grand jury. She is now saying that she did not hear Karen Reed say that. Now, this is important because she is the key witness in this case. She's the one that said she received the phone call from Karen Reed. She's the one that drove in the blizzard trying to find John's body with Karen Reed. She's the one who was supposedly there with her when the paramedics showed up to get John. So if what she said about that was false, what else did she say that was false? And that brings up another question about perjury, because now people are asking about that. People are saying, well, she basically committed perjury. But let me tell you what Massachusetts says. I think you might be surprised. This is pretty interesting. Watch this. Perjury at the Karen Reed trial. Experts explain what false statement by key witness means. So again, this is Carrie here. She's the one that had the false statement. We went over the dialogue there, and I just want to show you what Massachusetts says. A retired Massachusetts judge isn't so convinced about the perjury. He said the admission amounted to a prior inconsistent statement, but perjury, ? If they prosecuted this person for a prior inconsistent statement, there would have been hundreds and hundreds of perjury cases. This is coming from Jack Liu. He's a mediator and an adjunct law professor at Boston College. He served on the Massachusetts Superior Court as a judge for 16 years. Perjury charges are fairly unusual, he goes on to say, and they are difficult to prove. State law makes it a crime for someone to willfully give false statements in a material matter while under oath. In other words, to make intentional material misstatements, to intentionally lie under oath, according to Liu. Those misrepresentations must be consequential. So we went over what she said. You heard that there. And I want you to hear another opinion as well. Not an earth-shattering score. Wednesday's testimony rose to potential perjury ? From Liu. No, that is not perjury. I wish the defense all the luck, but that is not an earth-shattering score. If I were to analyze legal merits, I would hope that the defense has more than that. The retired judge said that Roberts made some mistakes during her testimony, but pointed out that she likely does not have meaningful experience in courtrooms. He said she seemed eager in trying to convict Reed, but added that in civil or criminal cases, it's a terrible idea to jointly come up with a timeline with another witness. He goes on to say that she shouldn't have done that. If she's losing sleep for claims of perjury, however, they should sleep well. However, another legal expert goes on to say, his name is Daniel Medwood. He's a professor at Northeastern University. He said he could not weigh in on Roberts' specific testimony, but described perjury more broadly. Accidents, mistakes, or slip-ups about minor things typically don't rise to the level of perjury. So, and I think people have different opinions about this, about whether or not she did commit perjury, but it doesn't look good for the prosecution. And it does, in my opinion, help the defense. Now, speaking of the prosecution, there's something I think that you should know. I found it pretty interesting that the attorney who is representing the O'Keefe family, you have to see this. His name is Hank Brennan. Who is Hank Brennan? Wait till you find out who he represented. Karen Reed murder trial. Who is the new prosecutor, Hank Brennan? Check this out. Let's get down to here. Brennan is a former prosecutor in Essex and Suffolk counties who now works primarily as a defense attorney. He represented mobster James Whitey Bulger in his federal murder trial in Boston. So the prosecutor is the same person who represented Whitey Bulger. And Whitey Bulger lost. Some of you may not remember that trial. I do, because it happened while I still lived here. I remember the Whitey Bulger trial. That's who he represented. He represented the Irish mob. And I don't know how he was defending Whitey Bulger. And Whitey Bulger was a murderer. So it makes you wonder who he had connections with. And I also want you to think about that when you listen to what Karen Reed continues to say, that she was framed. Now, it's one thing to be framed. It's another thing to be framed by a police department. How do you get out of that? But based on what I've seen so far with this particular case, I don't understand how they would be able to convict Karen Reed, because there's reasonable doubts. This is what happened the first time. The very first trial, it ended in a mistrial. And, there was a hung jury. That's why they're having a retrial right now. So I don't see how the jury is going to be able to find her guilty because there's just so much reasonable doubt. But this particular trial is everywhere right now. I see it all over, whether it's YouTube, I've seen it on the news. It's getting a lot of attention. I mean, it happens, especially if you're going to say that the police are framing you. And if Karen Reed is correct, why would the police department want to frame her? And if the police department is framing her, have they done this to someone else before? I don't see the jury convicting her on this based on what I've seen. I think that, again, Karen is going to walk free here. And then at that point, you'll have to ask, will the people in Canton, Massachusetts be able to turn the page from this case? Either way, I don't know, because somebody killed John O'Keefe. He had blunt force trauma. Somebody killed him. And if it wasn't Karen Reed, then that means that that person who did kill him is still out there. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Jiva says, cops frame someone unthinkable, not. Let's go into the other ones here. Thank you. Thank you, Closeted Opinions. I think her personality helps her, seems genuine. Trey said the police will finagle a way to make her guilty. Trust. Did I forget one part? I am so sorry. I forgot one part. There's one more part to this I wanted to play. The part that she said here at the end. Sorry, guys.
Regardless of the outcome, which will be an acquittal, eyes have been opened. That's why Alan and I are sitting here, is there's interest, and people are evaluating their law enforcement and their elected officials and their district attorneys with a more critical eye than they were before. And that's a bigger impact and a purpose that I could have, even if it's been very, very difficult for me and the people that are closest to me.
Something that the prosecution has recently been focused on were calls you made to your mother overnight. What were those calls about?
Anyone who spent any time with me throughout my life knows I'm incredibly close to my parents. And I was very troubled, to put it. You've heard the voicemails. It was a blizzard. There were young children unattended. And John, uncharacteristically, and when I say uncharacteristically, I mean he's never done that before at that hour in those conditions. And I was panicked. I was torn between, did something go wrong, or is he purposely ignoring me and taking advantage of me to go home to the kids while he stay out drinking? And as I do, and do I wish I did it less? Yes, but now I need her more than ever. As I normally would do, I'd reach out to my mother for, what do you think's happening? And I, reach out to them every day now that night just, it's like I never woke up from it. So
I think
Yeah, I wanted you to hear that part right there. I forgot to add that they're asking why she called her mom. So I did want you guys to hear that part as well. But, oh, buddy. We'll have to wait and see. Jody said there is so much to the story police cover up. Tiffany said that sounds like a drunken rage with 9 drinks. Trey said she is kind of giving me Bethany Frankel vibes from New York Housewives. Oh my God. Kay says she is correct. She is innocent. And thank you, Joe D. The Friends police deleted phone text evidence. Corruption. Could it be corruption? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.